We may have ended our yearly countdowns, but we got a new one coming up, and I think you're going to like it even better. This is great. Coming up, we're actually going to count down 10 unforgettable rock classics from 1976 that never cracked the top 40. Songs you know by heart, but were never hit singles. Most of these are better than the biggest hits of the day. You're going to get the story of a charismatic frontman who was confined to a wheelchair after a serious car crash, and then his band named the title of one of the most epic rock songs after his injury. And then there's the tale of a sonic genius who preferred working in his basement over the recording studio. So then when the label tried to get him into a real studio, he ran an elaborate scheme to trick them. He used his bandmates as decoys, and then we'll unpack a tabloid takedown that a female rock legend, she wrote it to call out women who were chewed up by the media. Then her own label turned around and used her song to exploit her with a crass ad campaign. Killer stories, legendary songs, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember solving mysteries with the book series Encyclopedia Brown as a kid, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell so you know our stuff's coming out. You know, you'll find something to dig on here. Also, check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your stuff. All right, so we've gone year to year from the 60s to the 90s, covering the best songs that charted in the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. It was a great ride. But just because we finished that series doesn't mean we're finished with the music. I've actually only told half the story with those countdowns. Now it's time to tell the rest of the story. Today we're kicking off a sister series that explores the top 10 best songs from every year that we covered before, except these ones failed to make the top 40. And in my opinion, most of these are better than the songs that hit the top 40. They're classics. Okay, so the first episode, I wanted to go back to the year 1976. There's a reason for that. You'll find out later. A time when disco grooves and soft rock ballads ruled the airways, and as a result kept some of the best songs from the year from climbing up the charts. Not all these songs were released as singles, though. It's definitely a mix between singles and album cuts. So to keep things less complicated, the criteria that I'm using is the year that the song's album was released. Are you ready for this? Man, we got to do this every Saturday. We got to celebrate Casey Kasem's American Top 40, a little tip of the hat to him. Here are my top 10 tracks from 1976. Never made the top 40. And number 10, I've got Kiss with the A-side that was actually upended by its B-side, Detroit Rock City. So here's the story. Kiss's Paul Stanley began Detroit Rock City as a tribute to the Motor City, but he changed course and began penning lyrics about a fan who was unalived in a car crash on his way to a concert. The idea actually sprang from a real incident of a fan who was unalived on the way to a show. Detroit Rock, that was crafted into a teen tragedy narrative with muscle. I mean, it had high-octane tempos, dual guitar fireworks, and a storyline that ends with that crash. Now, according to Stanley, he already had the basic riff of the song. You know, the get up, get down, that part. But initially, he didn't know what the song was going to be about, other than something to do with Detroit. But honestly, at that point, the odds were that the song was going to be about sex. There was rumors that they started that way. However, sex was a topic that Ezrin wanted the band to scale back on, Bob Ezrin, their producer. He wanted the band to draw in a larger audience beyond just a teenage boy demographic. So this song became a tragedy. Detroit Rock City was released as the third single from Kiss's fourth studio album, Destroyer. It followed singles Shout It Out Loud, shout it out loud, and Flaming Youth. Shout It Out Loud broke into the top 40, went to number 31. Flaming Youth stopped at number 78. But Detroit Rock City should have been a lot bigger. However, with the fatal car crash theme, it didn't exactly fit the mold of the top 40 at that time. And when programmers discovered the ballad Beth on the Flip Side, they made the switch and the request lines blew up from there. Oh, Beth, what can I do? It slotted in easily alongside, the day's pop and adult contemporary titles. So Kiss's label Casablanca quickly reissued the single with Beth as the A-side. That one raced to number 7, being their biggest hit. It left Detroit Rock City's prospects in the dust. Beth, what can I do? But Detroit Rock City was the better song, let's be honest. Actually, I talked to Ace, Space Ace, about this. Here's what he said about it.
Well, Bob Ezrin was an amazing producer and musician. He actually instructed me and Paul what to play on that solo. He wrote the solo. Me and Paul didn't. I'll never forget, so many people have come up to me and say, wow, that's such a great solo you wrote. I go, I didn't write it. Yeah, I always believe in giving credit where credit is due. And Bob Ezrin wrote that solo. He also changed Beth around a lot. He did all the piano work on Beth. Peter originally had called the song Beck, B-E-C-K. We decided to call it Beth. Peter does a great job on the vocals, but a lot of the song was rewritten by Bob Ezrin. Turned out to be one of our biggest hits.
Boys will be playing all night.
All right, coming in at number 9, the lucky number 9 spot, my favorite number. It's a scorcher, The Runaways with Cherry Bomb.
Stay at home, can't stay in school. Old folks say.
So formed in 1975, The Runaways, of course, were an all-female band put together by producer Kim Fowley. Going into their first album, the lineup was comprised of legends. Joan Jett, there was Lita Ford, Sandy West, Jackie Fox, and Cherie Currie. Incredibly, Cherry Bomb was written on the spot during singer Cherie's audition for the band. Currie, who was just 15 years old at the time, walked into her tryout and she was prepared to sing a Suzi Quatro ballad. Only nobody in the band actually knew that tune. So Kim Fowley and Joan Jett had the band improvise a tailor-made jam just for Currie. Joan banged out a raw riff and scribbled lyrics full of teenage angst and defiance, making it a deliberate play on Cherie's name, Cherry. The song, like its title, was a firecracker. Hello, Daddy. Hello, Mom. I'm your cherry bomb. One of the great stutters ever.
Cherry Bomb! Hello, world!
From there, Cherie stepped up to the mic and killed it, winning the job as the lead vocalist and also giving the Runaways their first anthem. The track's seductive charm was shocking, coming from a bunch of young ladies who were all under the age of 18, but that was the point. Cherry Bomb, that was released as the lead single from their eponymous debut in March of '76. And sadly, it only peaked at number 6 on the bubbling underchart, meaning it was 6 spots short of appearing on the Billboard Hot 100. Still, Cherry Bomb lit the fuse on the short but sensational career for the Runaways virtually overnight. These 5 young, explosive women became notorious for their seductive image and their wild exploits under Kim Fowley's controversial tutelage. Fowley encouraged their tough attitude and even their infighting. He knew it would fuel publicity. Here's what lead guitarist Lita told me about the track.
Cherry Bomb was written for Cherie when she first auditioned in the band. She came in and wanted to play something that nobody knew, so Kim took Joan in the other room and they came back out with Cherry Bomb and we all started jamming on it. And we were going to go on tour with the Ramones. So we were really into that chunky. Yeah. It's just, and it's also, Sabbath does the same thing, I need someone. So we just added all that into Cherry Bomb.
You know that one guy in the friend group who hit a crazy 5-leg parlay week 1 and wouldn't stop bragging about it the rest of the season? Yeah, that guy could be you with MyBookie. MyBookie makes it insanely easy to get in on the action. College ball, NFL, super contests, and survivor pools, you name it. All the spreads, player props, and in-game lines you could want all under one roof. And if you're new to MyBookie, you get a little extra juice. Check this out. Use our code ROCK, R-O-C-K, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your Bet Back bonus token. No better time to jump in, no better place to play. Football's back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. All right, coming in at number 8. It's a singer that I miss every day, and I know most of you do too. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with a stone cold classic off their self-titled debut that absolutely should have been a top 10 hit, American Girl.
Well, she was an American girl.
The album landed on November 9th of 1976 when Petty and the band were still virtual unknowns outside Gainesville, Florida. It would take time to catch fire though. The first single, Breakdown, that barely made any noise until a 1977 reissue nudged it to number 40 on pop radio.
Breakdown. Go ahead, give it to me.
American Girl was released as a single in February 77, but it didn't even go that far. It failed to break into the Hot 100. Can you believe that? It missed the Hot 100, one of the greatest songs of this band's career. Of course, the charts missed the bigger picture as American Girl. It became a calling card track for this band.
She couldn't help thinking that there was a little more.
It even headed up Petty's 1993 Greatest Hits album, and it's racked up over 500 million streams on Spotify and YouTube decades later.
After all, it was a great big world.
And of course, its memorable use in the movie Silence of the Lambs.
Easy, baby. Make last all night. She was.
As far as the story behind the song, there are a lot of rumors about this one. Actually, in Gainesville, there was a campus urban legend linking American Girl to a mysterious girl who had supposedly taken her own life at University of Florida. It was actually at Beatty Towers. Students would tell that the girl, she leapt from the dormitory in the late 60s, some said the early 70s, and that her ghost still haunted the halls. The lyrics, though, seem to match. A girl on a balcony listening to cars on Route 4 to 41.
Yeah, she could hear the cars roll by at old 441.
With Petty singing lines like, if she had to die trying and for one desperate moment.
And for one desperate moment there.
Now, the story was repeated so often, it became ingrained in campus lore from there. Never mind the fact that Beatty Towers had no balconies and no record of a jumper, so there's that. In spite of the facts, though, the story persisted and Petty grew frustrated with the rumor, calling it a huge urban myth. He maintained the song had nothing to do with that. The real story was a lot more ordinary. Tom actually wrote American Girl in the mid-70s after moving to LA where just late at night he listened to the freeway traffic outside his small Encino apartment.
Oh, yeah. All right.
The song, of course, became a symbolic portrait of youthful longing. You know, an American girl raised on promises, not a tragedy. Though the urban legend does live on. Petty's own words, though, made the truth clear. American Girl was a restless anthem of hope and yearning, not death. American Girl, it captured a distinctly American sense of longing. And even without chart success, it's a lasting mark, for sure. And for Tom Petty, it was just the first of so many anthems that would define his career and lock him into the role as one of rock's great American storytellers, period. Into the number 7 position on the countdown, got a little punk for you, a little bit of punk. Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So when the Ramones dropped their self-titled debut in April 76, it sounded like it had been beamed down from another planet entirely, especially then. 14 songs in under 30 minutes, rock stripped down to the studs. Now, leading the charge was Blitzkrieg Bop, a 2-minute detonation that matched World War II linguistics with 50s rock and roll slang. It wasn't about nuance, it was about impact. In 1975, while the Ramones were hammering out their first songs, Tommy and Johnny set one simple goal. Give the crowd a chant. And get this, the unlikely spark was a boy band, one of the first, the Bay City Rollers Saturday Night, a bubblegum pep rally that spelled its hook like a cheer. Said Joey, I hate to blow up the mystique, but at the time we really liked bubblegum music and we really liked the Bay City Rollers. Their song Saturday Night had a great chant in it, so we wanted a song with a chant. Hey Ho, Let's Go, Blitzkrieg Bop was our Saturday night.
Hey, ho, let's go. Hey, ho, let's go. Hey, ho.
Wow, boy band influenced one of the biggest punk bands ever. Now, reportedly, Tommy Ramone coined the iconic Hey Ho, Let's Go line partly at a grocery store and then mostly when walking home with a bag of groceries. And the band built the song around that rallying cry and a fast thumping 3-chord riff. Dee Dee's original title was Animal Hop, but that was scrapped in favor of the more explosive Blitzkrieg Bop. Of course, the name was provocative, almost daring radio to ban it or not play it. The sensational lore around Blitzkrieg Bop only grew as the Ramones took their act on the road, though. The song was like a starting pistol. Their early gigs were famously short and loud, and they often descended into onstage chaos. Equipment frequently broke mid-set, tempers flared, and their stage presence matched Blitzkrieg Bop perfectly. Of course, Blitzkrieg Bop never cracked the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, it was released as a single, but it was never given a chance by programmers. So, of course, it stalled way outside mainstream visibility. Coming in at just over 2 minutes, Blitzkrieg Bop was just way too fast and abrasive for mainstream radio in the soft 70s, which was stuck on the smooth rock, like I said. Fleetwood Mac, the Bee Gees, not that that's bad, but all these years later, it's the Ramones' biggest song, and it continues to get use in pop culture.
Hey, ho, let's go. Hey, ho, let's go.
Coming in number 6, we have really the best story of a song on this countdown, and it's a great song. At number 6, I'm going back to the beginning of a little band called Blondie. Actually, a huge band called Blondie. It's off their self-titled 1976 debut, Rip Her to Shreds.
She's so tall. Come on, rip her to shreds. She's so
Blondie blasted out of the Bowery with Debbie Harry behind the mic, and she was definitely a star in the making. But outside New York, the band and the album were practically ghosts at the time. Released on the tiny private stock label, the album got minimal push. The singles Ex-Offender and In the Flesh barely stirred U.S. radio at all, and Rip Her to Shreds wasn't even issued as a single, at least in the U.S.
you know her. Would you look at that hair? Yeah, you know.
It did debut as Blondie's first UK single in late 77 and turned up in Japan and Australia, where it peaked at number 81 in March of 78. But despite being anonymous on the US airwaves, Rip Her to Shreds became a Blondie concert staple in the 70s and early 80s, and also closed out their stellar greatest hits album, The Best of Blondie. On Rip Her to Shreds, Debbie Harry slips into character as a razor-tongued gossip columnist carving up a scene queen, Miss Groupie Supreme. I mean, for years, fans tried to figure out who she was talking about, and they pinned the target on Nancy Spungen. Punk fixture and girlfriend of Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious. However, Debbie Harry would say that the song wasn't about just one girl. Rather, it's a send-up of how gossip columns chew up women in the spotlight, and Debbie was included. She included herself in that equation.
Red eyeshadow, green mascara. She's too much.
So why write it? Because Blondie was living in the tabloid glare and wanted to fire back. Rip Her to Shreds was witty and self-aware. Punk attitude with pop instincts, giving the media the middle finger all the way. On stage, Debbie Harry turned the satire into theater. In the early club years, she sometimes walked out in a thrift store wedding gown, spray painted, ripped, and destroyed by the end of the song. The visual was pure, though. Blondie's street art. It's camp. It's confrontation. All in one frame. A literal ripping to shreds that matched the lyrics' bite.
She's so tall. Come on, rip her to shreds. She's so tall.
But then in a move that really should shock no one, the label took that provocation and made it crasser. They pushed the band with a sultry Debbie poster and the line, "Wouldn't you like to rip her to shreds?" selling the tease while completely missing the point of the song. Debbie wrote the song about the media exploiting women as a piece of meat or objectification, and then the label used the song to objectify its female singer. And of course, Debbie Harry hated it, but it actually proved her point. As satire about how women get chewed up became a marketing gag at her expense. The blowback only sharpened the song's edge and Blondie's downtown mystique, turning Ripper to shreds into their razor-edge calling card until the rest of the world finally caught up and figured out that this was one of the most dangerous, cool bands out there. Halfway through the countdown at number 5, I've got one that's going to hit you in the heart. Again, these are the songs that didn't make the top 40. This one come from a singer, songwriter, poet extraordinaire, Mr. Jackson Browne, and the song is The Pretender.
Cool of the evening, strolls the pretender.
From his 4th album of the same name. Now, this was Jackson's 2nd single off the record after Here Comes Those Tears Again. That one went to number 23.
Here come those tears again.
However, The Pretender would stall far outside of hit territory. It only went to number 58. I guess it's understandable. I mean, at nearly 6 slow-burning minutes, and it has a very somber tone, I guess it was a bit of a downer for top 40 rotation. But album-oriented radio embraced it. And, I mean, at number 58, it should have done much better than that. But it did bolster the album's commercial prospects. It reached number 5 on the Billboard 200 and went triple platinum in the U.S.
Rid myself a house in the shade of.
Jackson Browne's title track, The Pretender, feels like a quiet funeral for the American dream here. It's a pledge to keep going anyway, though. He wrote and finished the album in the hardest season of his life after the death of his wife, Phyllis Major, in March of '76. She took her own life. Jackson Browne laid his soul bare on this one. This one was delivered with producer John Landau. Jackson Browne, I guess it took him a while to write the lyrics. He pieced the lyrics together in multiple places, L.A., a rented storefront in North Hollywood, and even a tacky hotel in Hawaii. Interesting thing, he recalled spending days trying to get help for a man with schizophrenia, watching him pretend to belong, sparked by the broader idea of people faking their way through life. The story didn't become the lyric, but the concept of pretending did.
I wanna know what became of the changes we waited.
What comes through in the end is a story of loss sharpened into focus. That cinematic piano motif, the morning grind, and a narrator trying to reconcile who he's meant to be with the life that he's living. And this is such a great song.
When the morning light comes streaming in, I'll get up and do it.
Jackson Browne has said this song is 2 things at once. The part of us with higher ideals and the part that just settles. Say a prayer for the pretender. I love it.
Say a prayer for the pretender.
Ultimately, The Pretender wasn't made for top 40 fanfare, but it was built for the long haul. This is a very sobering song indeed. It means more and more every year of my life that I live as I live it. It makes one man's loss a lens for everyone else checking their convictions. It's the kind of song you live with, not skim. It's a slow burn standard that lingers on long after the dial turns. I mean, it makes you ask that question, am I living my best life or am I pretending? I'll link to it below so you can listen to it. Just amazing.
Are you prepared for the pretender?
All right, we've made it to number 4, and on this one, I'm queuing up the Mighty Zeppelin. You know, from 1969 through the mid-70s, Zeppelin dropped 6 heavyweight records. The rest of 75, though, turned brutal. On August 4th, 1975, while on holiday on the Greek island of Rhodes, Robert Plant and his family were in a serious car crash. Plant suffered multiple fractures, and his wife, Maureen, was critically injured. He spent the next stretch getting around by wheelchair and crutches. So the band actually had to cancel their late 1975 tour plans. A lot of people forget about that. But instead of going dark, Zeppelin regrouped that November at Musicland Studios in Munich. And there they cut Presence in about 3 weeks, their 7th studio album. The LP spun off 1 U.S. single, there's Candy Store Rock. It didn't chart. But the real story of Presence is Achilles' Last Stand, a 10-minute epic that ironically mirrored Plant's battered condition and the band's fight to just keep going. Named for the Greek hero who was felled by the heel, the title doubled as a dark joke about Plant's shattered ankle as well. In fact, during the sessions for the song, Plant became so animated while recording vocals, he actually toppled from his wheelchair and re-injured that same leg. It was a grimly fitting accident that sealed the deal on the song's name for sure. Behind the glass, Jimmy Page poured every ounce of urgency into this one. Overdubbing overdubbing some accounts, 7 separate guitar tracks in a single night. That's what the urban legend is. At first, the band thought that he'd gone mad. It's just too much. But once the layers were stacked, the full sonic vision emerged. And the result was a relentless gallop, with Page's guitar army riding atop John Bonham's pounding drums like a thunderstorm. Never a pop single, Achilles Last Stand became the album's defining statement, though, and a concert centerpiece from there. That is when they finally got back on stage in 1977. But it's not hard to see why Achilles Last Stand was never released as a single. I mean, it was 10 minutes long, and its complex arrangement is just too much for radio, and the band wasn't about to cut it down to size at all. Still, this song is an absolute colossal force, and it's just risen as time has gone on. One of Zeppelin's most beloved cuts. All right, we're here, the number 3 song, and if you thought Achilles Last Stand was long, well, we're about to double that one. This next entry comes from the Holy Trinity of rock, the mighty Rush, and I'm talking 2112. A 20-minute gauntlet that takes the entire first side of the band's 4th album, unfolding as a 7-part suite. I mean, 2112 is a dystopian sci-fi rocker mission statement. Between the lines is Rush saying, this is who we are, okay? So bear with me, because I'm going to have to geek out a little bit here. The name 2112 is a reference to the year in which the song takes place, of course. Thematically, it's about individual spirit versus authoritarian order. In the future, the priests of the temples of Syrinx control what you read, hear, and do. A nameless protagonist uses a forbidden relic, a guitar, to fight back, though. He believes music can set people free, but is crushed by the priests. He despairs, and then there's an ambiguous takeover in the finale that hints at an elder race returning. Musically, each chapter has its own flavor, but there's a shared DNA here, of course. Overture tees up the motifs. Temples of Syrinx hits like a hammer. Discovery drops to acoustic and ambient water as the hero learns to play.
What can this strange device be?
And of course, the grand finale detonates everything all at once. Are you still with me? This is progressive rock architecture with arena power. So this album was make or break for Rush. After the stumble of their previous record, Caress of Steel, the label pushed hard for short radio-ready cuts. But Rush, they did exactly the opposite here, doubling down on a side-long concept, tracking with producer Terry Brown in early '76, and the gamble worked. 2112 became their US breakthrough on its way to going triple platinum. Awesome. And it bought them their long-term creative freedom. Of course, 2112 was about 17 minutes too long to be a single back in 1976 for sure. But actually, the label did release one of the chapters of 2112 as a single, The Temples of Syrinx, which runs for 2 minutes and 19 seconds. But you can probably guess how well it did on the pop charts in that time. But really, Rush was always album first. Art was more important than commerce to these guys, which means that 2112's full power lives on in its sequence on side A, needle down, start to finish. All right, heading into the number 2 spot, the bridesmaid position, it's time to blow up our video. I've got AC/DC's, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
This one utilized one of rock's most unlikely instruments, the bagpipes. The song, a rowdy road anthem released in 1975, was a product of jamming and joking in the studio. Producer George Young remembered that lead singer Bon Scott had once been in a youth pipe band. So he urged the group to try bagpipes on this song. I mean, how crazy is that? Now, Bond, never one to back down from a wild idea, went out and bought a set of Highland bagpipes. They were about $479 back then. But the only problem is Bond had never actually played the pipes before. He'd actually been a drummer in that bagpipe band. He wasn't a piper. Unfazed though, Bon Scott taught himself on the fly. Even just assembling the instrument was tricky, but he figured out enough fingerings to belt out the song's signature drone and melody. A lot of people don't realize that, but Bon Scott played that and he figured it out on the fly. The result was pure magic, of course. Hard rock guitars dueling with bagpipes and a call and response that really shouldn't have worked, but it did. AC/DC had effectively created the first true bagpipe rock anthem, perfectly matching the song's theme about paying your dues on the rough road to rock glory. Performing It's a Long Way to the Top took on a life of its own, literally on the road. In early 1976, AC/DC filmed an infamous promotional video of the song while playing on the back of a flatbed, trucking through the streets of Melbourne. Bond, clad with bagpipes strapped on, belted out verses as city crowds gawked and the band held on for dear life. There's a lot of rubbernecking going on that day. But the chaos didn't end just there. AC/DC soon discovered that playing this thing live was a long way from easy. Actually, the whole group had to tune their instruments to the shrill drone of those pipes, and then Bond had to march and puff simultaneously while singing. AC/DC, they didn't really hit the US mainstream radar until about 1979 with Highway to Hell. Even then, Back to Black took them a while. And that was our first Hot 100 entry, was Highway to Hell. But that means It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll was not a hit. It was issued as a promo single in the US. It wasn't even an afterthought. I mean, it didn't even get played on the radio back then. But it was word of mouth that made its underground following. Of course, they're following in Australia and the UK. But it was never going to be a hit, at least not back then. But man, all these years later, it's one of those songs, signature songs by AC/DC, that's right up there with their big ones. All right, before I announce our number one song, I do want to give a little tip of the hat, a little honorable mention to a song that barely missed the top 10. It's Thin Lizzy with Jailbreak. All right, this is it. We've arrived at number one. And from their perfect self-titled debut, I gotta go with Boston with Hitch a Ride. I mean, this record was anchored by hits, More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Foreplay Long Time. Went on to sell 17 million plus copies in the US. At the time, of course, that was a record until Guns N' Roses broke it. We've told their origin story multiple times on here because it never stops inspiring. Tom Scholz, a perfectionist in the basement, chasing a sound only he could hear. A band built around that vision and a first album that saved 70s rock. It's the stuff of legend. But there's another aspect of this story that I want to cover that we really haven't. One that I don't think we've ever talked about it. So get this, when Epic signed Boston, they were expecting a proper LA studio record with a hands-on producer. They wanted a producer, they wanted a studio. That's how it's always been done. That's what they're expecting. But Tom Scholz had already roughed in the album in his Watertown basement, and he knew that he couldn't work in a professional room, with strangers staring over his shoulder in his every move. Enter producer John Boylan. John decided his job was twofold. Number one, improve the acoustics and drums, and number two, run interference with the label so that Tom could finish the album his own way. Now, to do this, Boylan staged a smokescreen. He flew the rest of the band to LA for a very visible session. They worked on the album closer, Let Me Take You Home Tonight. And then Tom Scholz stayed put in Massachusetts, quietly cutting the real tracks at home. When the basement masters were ready, John Boylan rolled a remote truck to Scholz's house, snaked cables through the basement window, and transferred everything to 24 track. And then they carried the tapes west. There, Brad Delp overdubbed vocals at Capitol Studio C, and Boylan, Scholz, and engineer Warren Dewey mixed at Westlake. The gambit? It actually worked. It worked flawlessly. I mean, Epic executives believed they were hearing polished studio tracks from California, when really they were listening to Tom Scholz's refined basement tapes. What a coup. Hitch a Ride, though? It was on the 6-song demo that got Boston signed. And then they rebuilt it in the same basement on the same gear. Tom essentially recut Hitch a Ride to mirror its demos before Brad's vocals lifted into the LA stratosphere. Now, if they had wanted, Boston could have rolled this and nearly every cut on this album out as a single. Their debut LP is that deep. But Hitch a Ride, to me, it's the record's heartbeat. On paper, it's a deep cut, but in reality, it's so much more than that. It shows the many intricate levels and relentless dynamics of Brad Delp's voice. And the guitar solo, it's otherworldly. It's like Tom Scholz thought, I'm going to write the catchiest rock songs ever, and I'm going to record them in my basement here with guitar harmonies that will change the course of music history, and then get the greatest singer on the planet that nobody's heard of to sing them. To my ears, Boston's self-titled is the most perfect album ever recorded, which is why Hitch a Ride is my #1 non-top 40 song of 76. So there you have it. That is my top 10. Can you believe these songs didn't make the top 40? Most of them didn't make the Hot 100. Some weren't even released as singles. What do you think? Were they better than our picks from 1976? Oh man, I think they are. What do you think? What are your memories of these songs? What's your top 10? What do you think? What year should we cover next? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.